Hey, hi everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to you all. Thank you for joining and connecting to Quality Next 2025 conference from various time zones. I'm Anjali Nikumb, test architect at Globant and a tester at heart. I'm proud to say that. We are pleased to welcome our esteemed panelists here. Like you heard from Prateek and Chandrika, this is our first panelist here. That is Jonathon Wright. He's the Chief AI Technologist at Eggplant. So, Jonathon, please go ahead and tell us more about your work.
Sure. Well, continuing in from that fantastic last session around leveraging AI for testing, I suppose, and the evolution over those generations. So I've been doing automation since the early 90s. I've been involved in writing a number of books. I did a book with Dorothy Graham, who was the first person to write automation code back in 1970 for Bell Labs in the US. But more recently, I published a book in 2020 for artificial intelligence for software testing. So I was part of the ISO 29119 Part 11 standard for testing of AI-based systems. So I've been building AI systems for the last 10 years based out in Silicon Valley, which is where I'm based now in Santa Clara. But before that, obviously, the last 4 decades have been focused primarily on automation. So I've got a breadth of areas to kind of cover today, and we're actually building, and we launched our first agentic platform about 3 or 4 months ago. So Keysight is the original Hewlett Packard, so the original Dave and Bill that started Silicon Valley back in the 1939s building test equipment, and we're that same company today. And I run an R&D across Oxford, Cambridge, Santa Clara, and Penang. So it's really exciting to be here, and looking forward to geeking out about agentic AI and how it's going to change the face of testing.
Great, great. And Jonathon, I must say you have a lovely workspace. Very interesting. All right.
Thanks. I'm trying to keep it a bit more exciting for conferences.
Great. All right. We move to our second panelist. That's Abiola Rasaq. She's the founder of the Bug Detective. Over to you, Abiola.
Okay, hi everyone. So I'm actually very excited to be here and to talk about this. So for me as well, over the years, I've been a software tester for a while, and I became very interested in AI because I interacted with some models, and I figured that some of the response I was getting was quite biased, and I started asking the right question as to who's testing this AI? And I think that was just like the right launch for me, and it's been a wonderful experience since then. So since then, I would like to call myself an AI ethics advocate and a quality advocate. So not just talking about the AI models itself, but also their quality, talking about ethics and how they are of good use to the human race in general. So yeah, that's all from me.
Thank you. That was very interesting. Okay, and moving to our third panelist, Anna Glober, is Vladimir Primac. He's a subject matter expert and from our QA studio. Over to you, Vladimir.
Yep, hello, thank you. So I am a subject matter expert with over 13 years of experience in IT industry. My journey has been deeply rooted in automation with a strong focus on Java, Selenium, REST Assured. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to lead and shape QA automation strategies across diverse domains, from finance and education to marketing, research, and others. So I specialize in building a robust automation framework, driving quality processes, and mentoring teams to elevate their testing capabilities. I know different tools, but now I am focusing on applying different AI possibilities in our day-by-day work. Beyond hands-on automation, I've served as a team lead, coach, and university lecturer for 9 years, sharing my knowledge in software testing, programming, development. So I am passionate about continuous learning and helping others to grow in their QA careers. And I'm glad to participate in today's discussion regarding AI agents.
Okay, thank
Thank
you. Right. So our topic for today is Beyond the Prompts, a Future of Testing with Agentic AI. It focuses on the next evolution in the AI systems, where systems do more than just responding, they also think autonomously. So agentic AI can take initiative, they can make decisions and adapt dynamically, moving testing beyond scripted prompts to intelligent, goal driven exploration. So they say that the shift promises smarter, faster, and more autonomous testing systems that understand the end goals or the objectives rather than just executing the script step by step. So let us understand more about it. So, having said that, I would like to discuss our first point with Abiola and Vladimir. So, here it goes. Like when we talk about agentic AI transforming software testing, what does that actually indicate? Like, how is this different from the test automation scripts and tools most teams are familiar with? Over to you, Abiola.
All right, thank you, Anjali, for that. So I would explain it this way. When we talk about test automation, usually you have, okay, I'm using either a no-code automation tool or a scripting tool, using Cypress, you're using Selenium, you're using Playwright, what have you. And I like to say this. So I own a community, I run a community of software testers in Africa here. So we are almost 1,000 testers. And one of the time when we have conversation, one of the things that, I tell them is if you don't script it, it won't run. So when you're scripting, when you're writing your automation script for certain things, it doesn't think for you to think, oh, I'm supposed to step here and open the fridge to pick up my salad. If you don't put that step of open the fridge, you get stuck at that point. So that is for automation. So for automation, you have, we have that, traditional way of making sure that we are highlighting step-by-step actions that the bot needs to take before we do certain things. But for agentic AI, it's more interesting because now when we say it's autonomous, it means that, it can take independent actions, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to wait for you to say, open the fridge, stretch your hands, take up the salad, close the fridge. You don't necessarily have to explain every of this step by step. It can literally think of these ideas. Okay, if I am supposed to pick out the salad from the fridge, then I have to open the fridge to start with. So that
Let me continue with my answer on this question. So I think it's a great place to start. When we talk about agentic AI transforming software testing, we're not just talking about faster automation. We are talking about a fundamental shift in how testing is conceived and executed. Traditional test automation is like a scripted play. We all know every move is predefined, every line is hard-coded, and we write test cases, define expected outcomes, and hope the application doesn't change too much, because then it does, our scripts often break. So agentic AI, on the other hand, is more like hiring a skilled improviser who understands the story you want to tell and finds the best way to get there. Even if the script changes mid-performance, it can adapt. So these AI agents are autonomous. They don't need step-by-step instructions. Instead, they understand high-level goals, like verify all user roles and complete their workflows, and then explore the system to figure out how to achieve that. They can discover APIs, generate test data, simulate edge cases, and even identify inconsistencies between the code and the documentation, the most difficult part for us testers. Agentic AI is adaptive. If the application changes, they don't need to be rewritten. They learn and adjust. They are intelligent. They prioritize testing based on risk, on usage patterns, and previous failures. They can simulate real-world behavior, model thousands of users to perform some load testing, and even detect race condition and business logic flows that scripted tests would never catch. It is the most difficult challenge for us. And this Agentic AI multimodal, they analyze UI elements, backend code, documentation, logs all together, all at once to build a holistic understanding of the system. So how it's different from traditional automation? It's the difference between checking if the light turns on, then you flip the switch, versus having an AI walk through the house, test every appliance, and tell you that the wiring might fail next week, so it can predict. Agentic AI shifts us from verification to discovery model, from static scripts to dynamic goal-driven testing agents. It's not just a better tool, it's like a smarter teammate. That's what makes it transformative for us.
Right. And to add to it, it also is you can say, a self-healing testing phase, I would say, and resilient as well.
Yeah, you're
All
right.
So till we have Abiola, let's move to our next question here. I would like Jonathan to address this one. Where are we today with the agentic AI testing implementations? Like, what are the most promising use cases organizations are successfully deploying currently?
Sure, that's a great question. And I think part of it is, I think we're talking about enterprise scale here. We're talking about I'm going to call it, how does AI grow up for those kind of organizations that are wanting to take advantage of, let's call it AI augmented testing for a second. So I'm kind of doing two things on the other screen at the same time. One was I was just talking to Dr. Tariq King, who, has been doing research in testing of AI systems for the last 10, 15 years. But I'm also filling in the preparing for Forrester's wave, which is all about agentic-based systems. And a lot of that is talking about how do large enterprise utilize these kind of capabilities. So we have companies that range from NASA doing space exploration to, mission critical Department of the Defense, aerospace and defense companies, medical companies using these technologies. What we've seen over, 2017, the introduction of transformers, and I think it was, the previous speaker who mentioned about, this has been going on since Alan Turing in 1950, which is just a few miles from where I live in Bletchley Park, where he wrote his original papers on the singularity and really kind of point us in the right direction to how we can leverage artificial intelligence. And I think, again, it was popularized in the sense it's become mainstream, and therefore people are starting to use it every day, using things like Copilot. And I think the confidence levels are, and also use cases they're trying to define for the testing industry specifically are more narrow initially. So, I'm going to partly disagree with the last speaker on the previous session to say, well, actually, about 2 years ago, we brought a solution to market around doing test design. Now, if we go back to things like requirements traceability, again, back to the 1980s, 1970s, with people, again, like Dorothy Graham, who wrote a book called Document Inspection, you don't want somebody to have to go through, and Vlad made a great point around reading through requirements and making sure they're always aligned with the test cases and that we've got the right level of coverage. And they don't want to have to not only be that test expert that knows boundary value analysis, equivalence partitioning, and which pattern to apply to which potential testable component. You want to be able to be assisted on that test design, because that takes about 60% of the time, right? Test execution is only a small area, and it's something we focus on for such a large amount of time, because this idea of automation, removing repetitive tasks is been going, for the last 4 decades. And we've only just seen this evolution. So where are we today? And that's the exciting bit. And I think Vlad made some fantastic kind of foundational comments that actually reasoning engines, like some of the Minstrel capabilities that have recently just been released, are incredibly powerful at being able to make decisions and document, that thinking process that we've seen with, with large foundation models like Anthropic. So what's really changed? Well, when we start applying agentic capabilities or AI agentic testing, we're not talking about the testing of agentic systems in this particular case. We're talking about, in essence, creating test swarms that are able to, work together to solve a particular goal. So Vlad also pointed out that, you would have within a normal organization, you might have a test manager who might be doing some test planning in a traditional sense. And that would then be passed on to lots of different test experts. Some of them could be exploratory, some could be usability, performance, security, lots of different disciplines. Part of it is the way I like to describe it and probably set it up for the next question for the rest of the panel is a hive. Is that actually, the hive controls, centralized, has the long-term memory of the activities that the overall success of that hive is down to workers that will go out and actually have limited memory, about 8K as a standard B. And that they go out as agents and collect honey, come back, pollen, and come back to the hive. Now, the whole point is, we all know this, they dance, and therefore they, correspond to other ones to go to other locations. If there's no pollen in an area, it won't go back, it will go to another area. So there's a coordination element that's coordinating the hive successfully. Now, actually, only 10% of those bees actually know what they're doing and can interpret dance. Therefore, they go off and do something completely anonymously, and they just go off and try something completely different. And that's what we need with agentic testing is automation, as pointed out earlier, is scripted and is linear in its fashion. We need to be able to look at doing all permutations, all use cases, but we also need to have the deviation in there to try things that we would never think of. And this is actually the best use case for agentic AI, is actually allowing it a certain amount of freedom to test things that we would never have thought about testing before. And that's where we're seeing results with people like NASA in healthcare and in incredibly complicated regulated environments. So, I think this is where it's an interesting era around supporting humans, human experts, we're going to say, or human testing experts. So yeah, that's what my kind of start it all off for everyone else.
Absolutely. I completely agree on the industries that you pointed out, like fintech or healthcare, e-commerce. Yes, I agree with this. All right. Abiola, would you like to share more such implementations for us? Or I'll just repeat the question for you, like where we were talking about where we are today with the agentic AI testing implementations, and what are the most promising use cases that the organizations are successfully having or deploying?
All right. I think Jonathan kind of touched on a lot of things, but I would just, go to the bitty part of things. I'm also going to speak for organizations from this part of the world as well. And when we talk about UAT, does user acceptance test, I think that we've seen a number of people try to use agentic AI to test such part of testing. But when it comes to proper deeply rooted testing, but we want to try to do a performance test, security test, there's still a little bit of trust, dilly-dallying here and there to understand, okay, does this really work, and can we really trust the results we get from here? And talking about critical thinking eventually, when we think about how a tester is going to process things and, kind of test a particular product as opposed to how this agentic AI is going to like test it. So there's a lot of questions around it. So I would say that adoption isn't necessarily on the high side, but it's very promising. It's things organizations are beginning to like explore. And like I said, in the UAT field, we've been seeing like a very good amount of adoption in that sense to say, okay, our testers have done the basic things that they need to do. Now let's see, what are the other things? What are the other use cases they're missing? What are the critical points that, might have evade the tester's gaze, and, how can we kind of, catch them before the end users use them? So I would say that, in terms of UAT, there's been like a very good adoption in that sense.
Yeah, and talking about UAT, you made me also think about, like, in the given duration, like before the production deployment, we can also engage or make use of the space for the other kinds of testing, say like non-functional requirements. They can be verified, and browser compatibility, devices. I mean, that gives a lot of scope for us to test.
Of course,
Great.
definitely. Yes.
Thank you. Moving to our next question here, we have Vlad and Jonathon to address this. Like, how do we test? Like Jonathon previously mentioned, we're not talking about agentic AI testing systems. So here is, how do we test these AI testing systems? Like, what strategies ensure that agentic AI testing systems themselves are reliable and don't introduce any false positives, or maybe say like miss any critical bugs? How do we verify that?
Yeah, let me start. I
Sure.
think it's one of the most pressing challenges in the modern quality engineering. Testing AI testing systems, especially agentic ones that operate autonomously, is a meta problem. We are validating the validators. To ensure they are reliable, we need a strategy that's as intelligent and multi-layered as the systems themselves. So we begin with clear objectives and limitations. Before any test is run, we define what success looks like. What types of bugs should the AI catch? What is considered a false positive? What actions should it never take? And this sets the foundation for safe and meaningful evaluation in future.
Right.
Next, we can apply ground truth validation. We build golden data sets, like test cases with known outcomes, and compare the AI's results against them. This helps us quantify accuracy, precision, and recall. Then comes controlled fault injection. We deliberately introduce bugs into the system and observe whether the AI detects them. This is crucial for measuring false negatives and understanding the AI's blind spots, because we need to train it.
Right.
Adversarial testing is also key. We challenge the AI with malformed inputs, ambiguous requirements, and edge cases to see how it handles uncertainty.
Right.
This is where we test not just functionality, but resilience. But we don't stop there. We implement already mentioned human-in-the-loop verification, especially for high-risk areas. Humans review AI-generated test cases and feed corrections back into the system, creating a virtuous cycle of learning and improvement, maybe infinite cycle. We also use N-B testing across different AI testers to compare performance and identify strengths and weakness. And we apply also statistical analysis, tracking false positive and negative rates over time using confusion matrices and confidence intervals to detect performance drift. Also, transparency is non-negotiable. We require explainability from our AI systems. Why did it generate this test case? What was the rationale behind that assertion? Logging and traceability are built in. And finally, we adopt a meta testing framework. This includes automated self-assessment mechanisms, dashboards to monitor performance, and regression testing of the AI tester itself. In essence,
Right.
we test AI testing systems by combining rigorous QA fundamentals with AI-specific strategies. This layered approach ensures that agentic AI testers are not just fast and scalable, but also self-accurate and trustworthy.
Got it. Right. That was a very good explanation around this, Vlad. Thank you. All right. Jonathon, would you like to share your insights on this?
Yeah, that was a great explanation. I think partly, foundational. Actually, Tariq was sending me a picture with Daoni. They're both in Argentina today, and Daoni again has been testing AI-based systems for a long time. And looking at how these different, hyper baselining these systems to get better understanding. And Vlad just mentioned things like data drift, measuring over time. AI auditability is absolutely critical. But what I've done is I put in the link to the book that I did with Rex Black on testing of AI-based systems. And actually, during that I was actually working with MIT during the COVID thing for contact tracing. So we were doing modeling of initially GPX and then Bluetooth proximity-based systems, which had machine learning, traditional deep learning put into some of the algorithms, which I detail in my chapter in the book, and how I introduced this gated approach. And I think Vlad kind of touched on one of the kind of I guess the most important aspects is AI explainability. Is you need to be able to understand what the goals and also objectives are, but clearly be able to explain it and then actually be able to make it testable. So, there is many different techniques that you can use, but actually, I think what we're seeing now, because of how quickly things are moving in the industry, is you've got to be able to understand what that does for your particular DSM, so your domain-specific models. And I think this is where Microsoft have spent a lot more time recently with things like AI Foundry, is they've been focusing on creating models that are specific within a model garden for your particular industry. So we have in essence a router which will choose up to 50 models and sometimes run 2 or 3 simultaneously to be able to work out what information you need to bring in. So whether that's a medical fine-tuned variant, or it's a specific to an industry or a domain. Now, this is the bit which I think we're missing out on from a testing industry, is until literally 2 weeks ago, and I was chatting to Jason Arbon about this literally yesterday, was the fact that Sam Altman and the head of, the founder of Cursor were both on a live stream. And they said, well, what's the last thing that we need now for foundational models like GPT-5? What's the bit which we're missing when we're looking at things like vibe coding and agentic IDEs like Cairo, like Firebase from Google? They're starting to, both Sam and the guy from Cursor said it's testing the output of what we're doing, make sure it's high enough confidence. Now, when I usually do spend too much time with Jason, he just always ranks the confidence level of the responses that it does. And then each time he's continuously taking in the information of how it performed on the previous one and the learnings that it got from the last one. So I would add that extra level around AI governance and auditability, and then I would probably reference both the executive order and the EU AI Act, but more specifically the ISO 42001, which I would hope that would, for this kind of group, would become the Bible, because it's around the frameworks that you can operate to provide AI assurance. And now this is something I'm doing a book with Jason and a few other people titled AI Assurance, that we're going to look at how you actually pivot your role in traditional testing to how you assure AI systems over time. Because if you're building AI infused platforms that are making medical decisions or insurance or financial services, you need to be able to test these in a completely different way than how we've traditionally tested systems in the past. So hopefully that just gives you a bit of a high kind of level of where to start thinking, but also a natural progression for all the testers that are on today for a future where AI is going to be a part of every system that we build.
Right. That's absolutely right. And that's exactly, we are moving to my next question in the same regards. That is, looking at the coming years, say like 5 to 10 years ahead, how might the AI or the agentic AI reshape software quality assurance, and like what are the potential risks and opportunities for the industry or the organization to prepare for? Abiola, would you like to share your inputs here?
Oh, definitely. I think that I'm very, excited for what the future holds for us, to be honest. Uh, Personally, I think that when we talk about software testing, most of the feedback that you hear, aside, testing the product, automating your product, is how a little repetitive it can be. Doing the same thing, especially when you're working in an organization that doesn't have necessarily multiple products. So when you don't have your organization building multiple products, you have to test the same thing over and over again, and it can get boring over time. So I think that, the future is more interesting because I think critical thinking is like a very core skill every tester should have. And this world of agentic AI now pushes us even further to explore this. And what does that mean? I'm saying that, when we are talking about the fact that, with agentic AI now, we have like a tool that can now begin to plan tests for us, check out requirement document and begin to say, okay, what are we planning to achieve and how do we achieve it, right? So when we have a tool that can now literally align from strategy, thinking about what tool to use, what type of test to do, these execution timeline is now like going to get smaller. So we don't necessarily have to spend so much time ruminating and trying to create a strategy to use for a particular testing, testing a particular application. But now the tool now, like, it shrinks the timeline, makes us more efficient. I think that's the word, efficient, doing something faster with a very shorter timeline. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I see that happening, and I also see test. I think that it would allow testers really explore their skills as testers. And I would explain what I mean by that. When I was talking about having so much repetitive things to do, you can easily get lost in I'm trying to test as opposed to I'm trying to make this product better. So you can be lost in that aspect of finding bugs, automating what you've tested to ensure that when you're doing your regression test, life is easy for everybody, ensuring that, you integrate all of your tests into the CI/CD pipeline, ensuring that what is built and, versus what the product team wants is in alignment. When you think about all of these things that you need to do, there are a lot. So I personally believe that, with most of these crude, so to say, crude activities now being taken care of by the you now have like more time to now explore, how can I make the system better? How can I think for my users? So I genuinely think that we will have more robust system. It's the same way when we talk about prompt-based AI, for instance, ChatGPT, Gemini, and all. For writers, for people who, I'll use writers, for instance. If you're someone who, write a lot, you find out that usually you have to, write a whole of your articles, your research papers, and you have to call your friends, your partners, kindly help me, review this document and give feedback on it. And, the timeline to actually release that is always very long. But now with this prompt-based AI, you can literally say, okay, this is my article. And I do that with, Gemini, ChatGPT as well. So, but one of the things I do now is I understand that ChatGPT, for instance, can take all of your work and just, you can't even recognize your work anymore.
Yes.
Yes, you can't recognize your work anymore. So what I do is say things like, I think I've said this before, don't change my words, don't change my thoughts, don't change my flow, don't change my expression, say all of these and say, I just need you to correct grammatical errors, typographical errors, structural errors, and it just makes life so easier. So you get my thought and, you understand what the story I'm trying to pass across faster. And I'm able to also, send out my articles, my research papers, even faster than I would naturally have. So for me, I think that we would experience that in the QA space. And just to quickly I understand that this now poses a new question. And I know that, I'm going to believe that many people here understand that AI is not necessarily coming for our jobs. I know people will have like, oh, by the time you're no longer doing all of those crude checks and what happens to my job, right? I think that now is when testers have that opportunity to say that there is this part of, I'm trying to find the word now, please permit me. Maybe the word is intuition. Maybe the word is
human intuition.
Intelligence. Okay, yeah, I think cognitive intelligence as opposed to artificial intelligence, and I call artificial intelligence assisted intelligence. So it means that you assist my own intelligence, not necessarily to about the whole thing. So I see that making the whole process, the whole testing process better. I see it making improving development timeline. I see it also improving how fast we are able to release product and the level of quality of work we eventually roll out. So I would say that, top of, I would say that those are the major things that I see happening in the space regarding this. And just to add, I think it was the previous speaker that was talking about, scripting, and he was talking about the fact that you shouldn't see, agentic AI as an avenue to like replace you writing test scripts and all. Well, I think I agree, and at the same time, I think that there's a middle ground somewhere because it's more like a skill. So I do agree that you can
balancing it out.
Balancing it exactly. So I do agree that you can use these tools, you can use these models to write certain scripts, like especially those very crude, the ones, especially those very those ones that are already clearly stated in your requirement documents. Okay, you should be able to do XYZ. Users should be able to do XYZ on the application. Those very crude ones. Now, those very critical use cases that would affect maybe security issues. When we talk about, I have worked in a number of financial organizations. So when it comes to people's money, people's data is very important. So despite the fact that yes, I am in support of reusing those tools for all of this tax, but I would also say that the testers experience is also important here to balance scale. Yeah, so that.
Right. That's great. Thank you. I'm sorry, we are just running out of time. So I'll go ahead. I'll run fast with my last question for Jonathon. With the rise of AI agents and big players like Microsoft introducing Copilot and other companies, they are launching their own agent creation studios. Most of them being paid platforms. Like, how do you see the business model for the professional services evolving around this? Because traditionally the QA and the testing practices, they have always leaned mostly on the open source systems, say like Postman, Selenium, Playwright, etc. So in this shift from the open source model to a paid platform, what is the shift or that the professional services need to do? Jonathon, would you like to tell us more about this one?
Yeah, sure. So, last time I was in Pune, I was hanging out with the Infosys team, and they're working on a platform called Topaz, right? And part of it is, I think you're going to see, and I think it was articulated in the last one, you're going to see this kind of augmentation of bringing in resources, agentic resources and generative or AI augmented capabilities that will be brought in to support. So I think that it was a great point around, if there's an activity you don't really like having to do, you'd push that through a workflow which potentially would then be replaced. Now, there's a lot of really interesting stuff to say about this. The first is, you know, Microsoft are looking at, so Copilot isn't actually what we all think Copilot is. Copilot Plus is in essence a neural compute unit that runs on your machine, so it can run the models locally. But actually, it's all about something called Microsoft Graph, which is in essence a knowledge graph, a bit like Neo4j, that is retaining knowledge from lots of different sources, i.e., you know, activities you're doing. So I refer to it more as process mining. So it sees the activities you're doing every day and then looks at how it can automate those workflow flows through Copilot Studio. Now, what Microsoft are looking at is opening that up into a marketplace. So what you would see is these organizations like Sogeti have Amplify. So, you know, I know the guys who put that together and Antoine really well. You know, they would then offer that capability infused into your Copilot system. So it doesn't matter if you're inside your Teams call, you're doing a planning session, you're even just having a conversation with a business analyst or somebody within the business who's talking about requirements. These assistants could be sat there looking through usability, WCAG accessibility skills, and you could bring those in to augment your team. So if you've got a small team, you can augment and outsource. Now, what's really interesting about this is the foundation models that most of us are used to are only the tip of the iceberg. So, you know, you can see over time that the generalized models, the foundational models are very inefficient, whereas actually more focused models, like I said before, DSMs, a lot of what Microsoft AI Foundry is trying to do at the moment are very focused towards business tasks that know your system, understand how you've implemented Salesforce or SAP or Oracle. So part of it is these oracles, as so to speak, are learning these graphs that are bringing it in. Now, I'm actually going to give you a world exclusive for a term that I will be sharing in Star West when I'm talking about meta-cognitive intelligent testing platforms or intelligent operating system platforms. That actually there's this role of the AI botanist, which is somebody who's it was placed perfectly by the previous speaker around bringing in your understanding and your expertise in your area. So if, for instance, you've been in financial services doing derivatives or FX for the last 10 years, what you'll see is you'll be presented with the knowledge garden of the graph, RAG graph in essence, slash, you know, more recent techniques like Mirage and RARE. RARE is retrieval augmented generative modeling. You'll see a representation of how it understands how you do derivatives of FX, and then you apply your derivatives or your healthcare or your pension knowledge or whatever subject matter expertise to prune these sources as these agentic systems learn. So, you know, I would normally, and I have done for the last 3-4 years, even went back to my original TED talk in 2017, you know, it was around cognitive learning, and it was all about human or tester in the loop. And it, you know, you're not going to be replaced by AI, you could be replaced by somebody else using AI, was the general term. And then this year and next year and the year last year, you know, we've got people like Angie Jones who are talking about Goose MCP. We've got the Vibe testing momentum happening in Cursor and Cairo, making it so that testers don't need to write Playwright. They just use Playwright MCP or Goose MCP. So part of it is we've seen this next wave, which reminds me very much of the software developer in test, but without the needing to learn to code, but actually know neo-symbolic languages, with neo-symbolic just meaning high-level English. So if you can cognitively think about the activity you want, like order me, I think the example was go to the fridge, grab something out of the fridge. If you're able to articulate that, you're using your subject matter expertise, your domain expertise, and your contextual understanding to then drive these agentic frameworks. So I'm going to kind of throw a bit of a curveball because I've got my CEO waiting for me on another call to say that actually, you know, the roles in the future will be things like AI assurance, assuring the transparency and testability of AI systems. But it will also be things like AI botanists, where you're bringing in your expertise to create the context and the discovery from these systems and make sure that those systems are behaving. So my job title is AI Wrangler. So it's wrangling a whole stack of agentic AIs to make sure they're behaving and doing the right thing. So it's very exciting, and it is the perfect time to be a tester. And if you've got backgrounds in regression testing, user acceptance testing, all those skills are going to be incredibly critical, but you've just got to embrace it and not have this kind of worry on your shoulder that actually you're going to be replaced, because we've been saying that about automation for the last 30, 40 years, and automation still hovers around 22%. So manual testing is going to be here for a lot longer. Now you're going to be supercharged by agentic and AI augmented testing capabilities.
That's right. That's absolutely right way of saying that. Yes. All right. Thank you, Jonathan. In the interest of time, we will pause here for now, although it's a ongoing thing. I would say today's discussion has and truly highlighted how agentic AI is poised to revolutionize our software quality assurance. Thank you to our panelists, Jonathon, Abiola, and Vladimir, for sharing such insightful perspectives on the future of testing with agentic AI. Your presence made this discussion truly special. And thank you all for joining us and contributing to this vital conversation at Quality Next 2025. Let's continue to explore more. Until then, goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.